And take a deep breath out. And take a deep breath in. And take a deep breath out. And open your eyes and just kind of shake out some tension. And let's get started. So how are you doing? And I don't know if you guys can clap, like just raise your hand, or if you just want to type a word or two to Heather. But how are you doing? Are you feeling very anxious? See what the chatter is. Are you feeling very stressed? What fears are keeping you up at night? Hopefully none. What are you thinking about? What are you talking about with your friends, with your partner, with your children? Just give Heather a little bit of feedback there. And we're gonna get started. Oh my God. And we are. How are you doing? So these have been really interesting 7 months. And I think it's important, and I will share with you, I always have a journal, a notebook. Sometimes I get pretty ones, sometimes I don't. But I keep of course, my to-do list. But then I keep a journal just for how am I doing? How am I feeling? What am I thinking? And I don't know, I'm sure I'm like you, I'm too busy sometimes to write beautiful paragraphs. But I do just write, anxious today. What's making me anxious? Boom, boom, boom. And there's so much research supporting that when we actually take the time to sit and to write out our feelings, we're giving our central nervous system a chance to reset. And I don't know about you, but these last months, they've been pretty traumatic. Let's be honest. They've been pretty traumatic. So tonight, we're gonna talk about how are you doing? And I wanna hear how you're doing, your anxiety, your fears, your stress. And I wanna talk and give and share some self-care. What are you thinking about? What are you hoping that you need to do? How do I help you create space so that you have more time to self-care? And then we're going to talk about self-respect and boundaries and building community within your family. So let's start with anxiety. I know we use that word, we overuse that word in our society so much, but I just thought I'd throw this out. Anxiety is an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, and changing. We all know this. It could be increased blood pressure, getting sweaty, tingling in our arms and legs, racing thoughts. That's part of a definition from American Psychological Association. Some people think they have OCD. I hate using labels. When we have lots of anxiety and we have lots of racing thoughts, it's very common for them to loop. I was on the phone with one of my college student clients today, and we loop. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna fail the test, and if I fail the test, I'm gonna get kicked out of school, and my parents are gonna throw me out. Hold it, let's come back. Let's do some breathing. Let's do some grounding. Let's remember, these are thoughts that are creating this physical symptom in our body. Anxiety manifests in so many different ways, in you, in your children, in me. And so it's so important when you are listening to your child, that you listen to your child and you hear what they're saying and get curious. Oh, Mom, I always have a headache. Are they telling you they really have a headache? Why do they have a headache? If it's just a one-time thing and they haven't eaten all day or they haven't drank any water, okay. But sometimes headaches are symptoms of anxiety. So one of the things is we as a society often talk about anxiety. Oh my gosh, I have so much anxiety, but we don't stop and really look at the layers underneath and talk about strategies. So to say to a child, oh, your headache is from anxiety, what does that mean to a 10-year-old, a 15-year-old? How do they process it? So there's healthy strategies and there's non-healthy strategies. We know that, right? We know someone who emotionally eats, drinks to get rid of their anxiety, all those things. You don't need me to tell you that. But let's talk about the anxiety. So let's go to the next one. Stress. Stress is a normal reaction. Who of us weren't stressed when they shut down school, when they put us in lockdown? Again, many of the symptoms are the same things. Add some moodiness. Well, how do I know I have a 13-year-old daughter and she's moody because she's a 13-year-old? Or is her stress getting to a place where it's really uncomfortable? Or even if it's hanging out here, how as the parent do I help my children come up with strategies to help them manage their anxiety? Well, we got to start with you. So anyone chime in there? What are they feeling? Stress? Are they feeling anxiety?
Yes, definitely.
Lots of stress.
Stress and anxiety.
Any fears? Anyone fear? Mostly stress and anxiety. So how does stress look and feel different in children? So I mentioned sleep, difficulty sleep. I mentioned the headaches, physical symptoms. You know, I often will have these young people come in my office and say, oh, I had this pain in my leg, Nancy. It's so bad. My mom has taken me to 15 doctors and nobody can figure out what's wrong with my leg. I'm glad to hear there's nothing wrong with her leg. But to me, I'm very curious about that. Does that mean this child is very tight and very guarded and always worried? Or let's take it away from the child. Does this happen to you? What's the stress like? Are you someone that holds it? I hold it right here. Really nice knot. It wasn't easy. I don't know if anyone had this. Going through all those months of lockdown and not being able to do the same level of self-care that I was used to. I couldn't go to my Pilates to help stretch this out. I couldn't get massages. My body held up really well until it said, enough. Okay, we got you through this crisis, but now, hey lady, you better start taking some good self-care. Okay, let's go on. Fear. I'm a big fan of Brene Brown, and she gives this quote, we're all afraid. We just have to get to the point where we understand it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that we can't also be brave. And that is such an important thing. I'm going to say it again. We're all afraid. We just have to get to the point where we understand it doesn't mean that we can't also. I want you, if you don't already do this, to tell yourself this, to say it in the mirror when you, and to share that with your child. It's not bad. It's not wrong. It doesn't mean that they better if they're feeling fearful or anxious or stressed. It's what we help them do with that. This time is for us to help build resiliency, our own resiliency and the resiliency in our kids. Fear is a heavy, I think of it as a distressing, heavy emotion. I want you to think, take a few more deep breaths, think. How do you communicate your fear with others? I where my mom had a lot of fears. Hope she's not here. Sorry, Mom. And her fear, let's say, was circled around, I'm going to change it, but let's say something in nature that we couldn't control. How she was allowed to have that fear. She was human, with human needs and concerns. It's how she communicated that fear to her children is so passionate about the work I do with families and children, because our children are little sponges. We hear that all the time, right? They're sponges to the words, but also the energy we give. So they, they watch you, they hear you, they listen to you, except them what to do, like get off the screen, but they are. So I want you to think about, and if you have a piece of paper, just jot down, don't think too hard, just jot down on your piece of paper, what are some of your fears right now? I'm afraid my kids will get sick. I'm afraid I'll get sick. Those are mine. What are some of your fears? And then after our program, maybe later, maybe tomorrow, I want you to think about how you show those fears to family members, to friends, to your extended world. So, coping with anxiety. How do you cope? Love chatter in the chat box. I want to hear, how have you guys been coping for the last 7 months? Have you been connecting more with friends and family? Have you been, me personally, I don't know, probably some of you have seen me walking around the neighborhood, and now my neighborhood includes, I'm up to 6-7 miles. So I found streets in Short Hills that I didn't even know were here. So that is one of the ways I am coping with my anxiety. I don't know anyone else out there eating too much chocolate. So I just put myself on I'm on day 5 of the scariest detox I've ever done. Hopefully I won't pass out while we're talking. So how are you coping? Anyone? Anybody?
Puzzle. People are saying puzzles.
Love it.
Listening to books. I've noticed that concentration is not, I can't sit through a whole movie or read a long book, but listening to things, podcasts, and listening to short books helps.
Yeah.
Cooking, definitely cooking.
How do you think your children are coping with all this new world? Anyone put in the chat box? So I'm going to read another quote while you guys chat. How is that possible? I turned the phone off in the house. I literally put the phone under my pillow. There is a poltergeist in my house. I'm putting this out so no one can see it. Here again. I've done that twice last week. We all have patterned ways of managing our day-to-day anxiety. And these patterns reflect the roles and expectations of our first families. So the way we all have been coping and are coping goes back to our family of origin, just like my story about my mom, right? How did I see my mom and dad manage stress and anxiety? How did I see my sibling manage stress and anxiety? Doesn't mean I have to repeat it, but it is such a worthwhile exercise to pay attention and do the work to see, that's what I learned. And let me take what feels good to me, worked for me, and let me decide if I no longer need some of that behavior. I call it, let me let go of anything and everything that no longer serves me. So you know what? Maybe I don't want to do it the same way that I used to do it. Anybody more chatter and how the kids are coping?
No, I think that might be something that people are struggling with. I hear what you're saying, that they would model behavior like, I like to go out and exercise and walk and be outside. And I basically have to throw them out of the house to get them to go outside and do anything, because they would prefer to just keep sitting and watching their screens and chatting with their friends online and not kind of take those breaks that everybody knows is so good for them. They find their coping mechanism online, and
then there's a part, because we know, thank you for sharing that, we know from all the research, and there's some wonderful stuff coming out that's supporting that the more screen time we have, it affects all of our mood, not for the better. There's the curve, there's the good, like, yes, we want our kids to connect with each other and family members and grandma and grandpa. But then at what point does it start to have that negative effect? And when they say no, they won't want to go out of the house, that's actually the indicator that, wow, I better pay attention because they're on this side of that curve. Because I don't know about you, but like if I'm not feeling well and I'll give myself a couple hours, doesn't happen often, that I'll just like watch a movie, lie in bed, God, I'm feeling sick. And all of a sudden it's harder to get up to do the next activity, right? That's just human nature. It's hard to get started.
Yeah.
So I'm going to help you with that. So children and anxiety. And this is just some real quick. I want you to really close your eyes and just listen to my voice. And I want you to visualize that you are looking into your children's eyes. All the beauty and hope. And now I just want you to sit with their energy, feel them. Their amazing little body, or big body. How do you think they're really doing? How are they feeling? How do you feel when you plug into them? Are you, oh my God, I'm triggered, I'm worried about them, I'm worried about this. What does it feel like in your body when you start to get triggered by when you're thinking about them? When you're ready, you can open your eyes. And as I said, children plug into you. They plug in and they analyze your stress and anxiety, and they might lash out at you. So this is a bright screen. Sorry, didn't really make this one so bright. Self-care. I guess I'm staying in neon lights. Put the oxygen mask on. Anyone adapt any new self-care rituals? We heard baking, we heard puzzles, which is great. We started beading in my house. I don't know if you guys can see, but I'm into, who knew I could be so creative after all these years. I have lots of crystals. I've studied majorly all kinds of courses on what stones are healing. Whether people believe in it or not, they're very soft and they're very pretty. And when I'm working with clients, I find myself just holding them, rubbing them. So I have tiger's eye, which is very grounding. And I have amethyst and moonstone. And then I have my pretty gold beads that I'm told are in style right now. So things like that are ways that I am taking care of myself. And it might sound so silly, but it's the same as puzzles or coloring or beading, knitting, all those things.
Knitting.
Yeah. Knitting is good.
That's
crocheting.
Yep.
It gives the central nervous system a chance. But it also does something that I know we all love. It takes our hands off that phone, off that iPad, and it gives our eyes a break. What brings you joy? Write that down on your book. What brings you joy? I say it so easily, but I don't mean to be casual about it. I know I've been struggling with this. What in this new world that we're living in really brings us joy? And have me a priority, because I need joy in my life to be able to do all I do out in the world for my family and community. And I've struggled with that, and I make sure that better than I've ever done, is I have to block out some time for, and it might mean making a couple bracelets at night, doing something like that, talking to an old friend, and you find that you've connected with more people in a more, intimate way since all this has happened. I feel like the people that I have connected with, it's become very intimate. Anyone share if you've had any experience like that? Next question. What is your style of parenting? Heather has heard me talk about parenting for years now. We never get tired of it because who knew my adult daughters would come back home and I get to reassess what kind of parent am I? Am I trying to be the cool parent? No, promise you. Am I trying to be their friend? Am I the boss and it has to be my, right? What's your way? Are you always the victim? This is a hard one. And I can't see your reactions. I wish I could, but do you always, oh my God, I worked so hard on this dinner and nobody's eating it? Poor me. Am I trying to be the martyr? Take time. Read some good books. Even for me, like Heather, I have the patience right now to read, but when I'm walking, if you see me walking and I'm not talking, it's because I'm going through books and classes online like there is no tomorrow. So 3 things you can do, guaranteed to help your anxiety, because I don't know about you, but if my kids' anxiety, stress, and everyone in the family is doing well, I'm doing better, right? So here's 3 things. I hope you're taking notes. Write down. Number 1, routine. I know, a really sticky word, because I used to be able to say that and parents were like, yeah, we got a routine. We get up at this time, we eat breakfast, we go to school, boom. What's routine now? I don't even know. When is Melbourne elementary schools open? Not yet. Next week. Next week. I'm trying very hard to stay, but every school district is different and it's very confusing.
Yep.
Routine. If you're confused about the routine in your house, there's a good shot that that's creating a little unrest, maybe stress, but certainly it's because kids need routine. They need that construct to help them feel safe and secure. And that's how you build resilient kids. We're going to keep coming back to that resilient kids. So I want you to think about, what are the routines? And a routine can be flexible. You can always deviate from the routine. I'm a pretty spontaneous person, and I don't really like structure. And anybody's kids go to the Melbourne Co-op. When my girls went to the Melbourne Co-op, I forgot which one, daughter, this happened, but the director at the time pulled me aside, and I was still in my 20s, and she gave me the finger and gave me a lecture about how I better get it together and bring more structure into my daughter's life because she needed it. I was like, oh no, like that would, so what's your wake up time, homework, exercise, chores? I want you to write this all down, because these are things that need to be part of the, again, you can say to your child, these are our routine. We can deviate, we can move it around, get a big calendar, involve them in it, but have some of that. What's our weekly routine? Thursday night's pizza night. Every Thursday night we bring in pizza. That's part of your routine. Where's the fun? Where's the joy? Don't just make routine about negative or homework. What's your bedtime routine? Any comments? People good? Okay. Kids, I mentioned this already, kids love the structure and the routine. They might fight you on it, but that doesn't mean they don't need it or it's not creating important touch points for them. And then when they get older, those are the things that they can drop back into. Remember when we used to do that? Remember that book? You know, now I get to see things that I might have struggled with, but they really did anchor. They anchor the kids into it. Some things that I've seen a lot of families doing this, or I haven't seen, they've told me, is kind of having a little bit more time, hopefully, to spend more time with bedtime rituals. And baths. Baths are so good. Salt baths. You can put a cup or a half a cup of Epsom salt with a half a cup of baking soda. You can put in some essential oils. I'm big on essential oils. Very sad, this store just went out of business in the Short Hills Mall, but if you can get it online, S-A-J-E, or any essential oils. Lavender is great for relaxing Peppermint is for energy, so if you're trying to put your kid to bed, don't put peppermint in. But those are things, and involve your kids with it. A friend of mine in California, she started making bath salts, and that became a whole project that her daughters and she made. Morning rituals. Can you get in a walk around the block? Great time for your kids to take on more responsibilities. You always let the dog just run out in the backyard. Ask your kid to walk the dog around, obviously age appropriate. Family meals. We at MMAC love to talk about family meals. So let's see, can we have hands up? How many people have been having more family meals in the last 7 months? Yay, Heather. But this is one of the perks. I actually have had more family meals in the last 7 months than I probably honestly have had in 10 years. I had been so used to eating dinner either alone or skipping it because I just work all the time. My husband works all the time. And now I've made sure that I don't book clients during an hour window. And that time might change because we don't always have dinner at 7 o'clock, but I'll check with the family and try and get a sense in the beginning of the week where everyone's gonna be, and then we book family meals. No devices. So I have another question, time out for myself. All of you that are out there, because I can't see your beautiful faces or your names right now, how many of you have attended any of the Empower Hours in person? I have to figure out which screen lets people raise their hands. You know, that little like chat line?
Yeah, they have that reactions on the bottom of their screens that they can
Yes.
post reactions.
And are all people new people or?
It's a lot. We do have a lot. It's a good mix. There's some regulars and a lot of new people tonight. So
I'm so happy
it's
to
fantastic.
see you. Yeah. Okay.
It's kind of the beauty of the virtual program is we get to really
I must
be
say,
available to a lot of people who wouldn't normally be able to be at an Empower Hour in the middle of the
and
day.
we finally did an evening program when people are here. Yay.
Exactly.
So let's take a deep breath. And this one, I feel it. I can feel your energy. You're like, Nancy, please help me. Or this one is too big, lady, you are not gonna help me. Right? It's teaching time management. I don't have my phone here because I just threw it out there. But if I had my phone, I would hold you up. First thing is everyone struggling with the screen time behavior with their kids?
100%.
Everybody.
Everybody.
Everybody. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I feel so bad for all of you. And I think it's just, this is another pandemic of our time, right? How are you supposed to do virtual school while our children are so addicted to this device and then try and stay ahead of it and help their brain and their body? It's really hard. And you say that with compassion. I know that none of this is like magic and it's gonna work, but it's just, I've done a lot of research this summer and I took many, many courses with some of the top researchers in the country on this. So what I share with you is, as hard as this is, I'm passing the baton to you. I'm giving you courage, whatever I can do. You're not in it, however many people are on this tonight. We're all saying this is something that's hard. I think it's important to start with simple curiosity. You got to get facts. You take out your little book again, and you want to no yelling, no judgment. You just want some clean facts. How many hours, everyone's devices, you can check your kids, or if you have it set up so you can look even from your phone to theirs, but you want to know how many hours are they spending on the devices. Get as much information. Can you see where they're spending it, what they're doing? I don't know if you can even track if it's 2 devices. Heather, do you know that? Like if they're on their computer and their phone, How does that register as time spent? I don't know that. I have to find that one out.
I don't know.
Yeah, so it's really
Maybe you'd
interesting.
have to count, because sometimes they're on both at the same time.
I know,
In
that's what I'm
school, on the computer, on the Chromebook or the computer,
right.
and then they're also doing things on their phone. Even in class, the teacher has assignments or things that they're doing on their phone, online.
Right. So get curious. Assume that whatever number you got to add a little more because they are on the two devices. And then I think you ask yourself and your partner, if you have one, how many hours a week do you think is healthy for your child to be on that device, separate from the school hours? We got to take that chunk, whatever it is right now, and separate it. You really have to. And so if they're on 6 hours for school, 5 hours for school, then look at the other. And then do this. Many of you might have heard me do this, but it's a pretty powerful exercise to do with your child. If your child is spending 3 hours a day, other than school, on their device, times 5 days a week, do the math, 15. Now they're on the weekend, say 6 hours, add another 12, multiply it. I didn't do it right now because it's so depressing, because the last time I did it, I came up with 91 hours of a year. 91 days of a child's life is spent on a device. That means, so the last time I did this with a client in my office, which was obviously months ago, I had him, he was much more than 3 hours a day, and it came to almost 4 months. And I looked him straight in the eye and I said, "You're 13? You are telling me that you're okay with spending 4 months of your life with your head in a device?" And he started to cry. That was before COVID. It's a crazy world. But if we don't do the math and get curious, how are we going to get ahead of this? So we could go on about that forever, and we could even do another program on that. But that, you got your assignment on that. Number 2, write it down. Number 2, the dirty word nobody wants to talk about. Consequences. I should put this page in neon green too. Does anyone want to share in the chat box what are some of the consequences that you have in your house, that you've tried in your house, that didn't work, that does work? As I'm talking, just chat away. So how do you motivate your children to respect and participate in routines? So number 1, we talked about routines. But how do you get your kids to do it? Like, Nancy, I have someone empty the dishwasher and someone else is supposed to take out the trash and someone else, but they never do it. I do what I'm supposed to do, but they never do it. Consequences. This is hard. I know it's really hard. So how do you motivate? Anyone have any comments?
Right. Some people use the devices as the consequence. So you either lose your time because you haven't done the things you're supposed to do, or you earn time by doing the chores or the activities that parents have set out.
Does that work? The people that wrote that, does that work? See what they say.
Yeah. In my experience, it's
Does it work?
Hit or miss.
Hit or miss.
Yeah.
So I often suggest, of course I don't know you or your children, I might know you, but I don't know your children, is I don't like the devices to be part of this conversation about consequences, because I think of devices as something so incredibly addictive. We know that spending too much time on devices alters our brain. It alters the brain, and there's more gray matter, and it's harder for a child and an adult to self-regulate, and I could go on and on. So if we look at it that way, us giving them consequences is a very emotionally charged thing, right? So let's think of other consequences. And I want you to take some time and really think about what are some consequences. I think allowances are great for some parents. I really like the idea of allowances rather than you just throw in your Venmoing the money or giving them a credit card or however, right? Because I don't know about your house, but Grubhub, all those things. Like this has happened so many times since I've been since COVID, where I'll be talking to a client, an adult, and they'll be like, oh yeah, Grubhub just came. Gosh, I didn't even know my son just ordered lunch. Okay, you might think, what's the big deal? Okay, the kid was 7. He ordered Grubhub himself. How did the 7-year-old order Grubhub himself? I got so curious. I'm sure she was annoyed because I was like, wait, how did that happen? I want to know how that happened, right? So I'm not saying raising independent kids isn't bad, but what does it mean to them? So allowance doesn't have to be $25 if you have an 8-year-old. Just give them something. Well, a lot of people will say to me, my kid gets pretty much everything they want, so they don't really want money. Well, then we got to shift that whole system because children, it's okay to want things. Don't you like to want things? It feels good when we work hard for something and we earn it. It feels good. Doesn't it feel good when we want something and we learn patience and then we get it? That is a really important thing that we need to teach children. And that's something that I see is missing a lot. The kids it's like this instant world. Amazon, right to the door. Thank God for Amazon. But, so allowance, but sit down and have a plan. Don't just react. I was going to give you $10, but blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this leads me to something I talk about very often is coming up with a family contract. Real quick, I just need to time it up. Heather, I put my phone away, so I don't even know what time it is.
7:50.
Okay, I'll talk faster. Build a family contract. Take a piece of paper and write down what is your goal for your family right now. What is your goal? You want everyone to be healthy, happy, joyful, give back to the community, kind, all the things you want. You need to work on that. If that's the kind of family you want, what kind of people do you want your kids to go out and be? In that contract, don't do it without your kids. Involve them. Say, hey, what do we care about as a family? You know, we had this discussion just yesterday is, hey, we usually give our charity here. Do we need to tweak that right now because of COVID? Those are the kinds of things that go into family contracts. And then why do I say consequences again? That's where you bring in the consequences in your family contract. Hey, we as a family expect our children that you don't go out and drink, do drugs, and smoke. Put it down. Your kids are 10, you start putting that down. They're 6, put it down. If that's something you really care about, and we care about that right at MMAC, I want you to put that down. This family contract is a living contract. It changes over time. So, real fast, I talked about some of these, but the thing about chores I want to bring in. Now is a great time. I feel like when I say chores, you're all going, because that happens so much with my clients when I could see people in person. Is like, oh, Nancy, we have a housekeeper. We don't need to do that. It's easier for me to do it. think of chores as important as their tutor, as their violin lesson, whatever you want us, their basketball lesson, their tennis. They need to chores because you know what? It makes them feel good. Okay. Anyone have any questions about consequences? Anyone think it's a good idea? And then I drop back to family contract because they're going to bring that consequences in. And let's see, you guys can read through this, but I just want to pull out also at family meetings. We used to do Sunday nights are a great time. And hopefully you have family meal together. If everyone's their own way, maybe just come together for dessert and say, hey, let's all check in. Talk about how was your weekend? What's your plans for the week? I know our life looks different right now. So what's on your, hey, Heather, what are you doing this week? Nancy, what are you doing this week? Who has big tests this week? Who has da-da-da, right? Let it put it out. Then also talk about your screen time and then talk about anything else. We used to also do, and I've heard a lot of people call it different things, but gratitude time. If your kids don't like that word, bring about tell me 2 positive things, 2 happy things, 2 funny things that happened this week. I'm very sensitive to complaining. I don't like that children complain all the time. So in our house, it was for every complaint, you got to give me 2 positive things that happen. You can tell me the negative. You can tell me that you were so mad that Bobby pushed you into the locker, but I also want to know 1 positive thing. And that sounds silly maybe, but it also, our brains are actually wired to go faster. We process negative thoughts faster than we process positive. So you are actually helping your child develop that part of the brain that thinks positive and good and joyful. And then, hey, you walk into your child's bedroom and they are still on the phone or screen and it's 2 in the morning. What's the consequence? Instead of getting into this reactive screaming fight, grabbing it, screaming, you can just refer back. Wait, last Sunday we sat down and you made an agreement. You just violated that agreement, your choice. But remember, we said, here's the consequence for that. And this one is a great place to start to tie it all together. And it may seem silly that I even need to say this to you, but I hear a lot from our children. I have never been this busy with kids and teenagers. And they know you're stressed. They know you're worried. They're worried. But they still need the love. They still need the hugs. Even when they're fighting you and telling you they hate you and slam the door, they still need you to be the parent and come in at night and say goodnight. And I'm not saying you let them run all over you. And cursing, unacceptable. That goes back to one of the first slides of self-care, self-respect. You can't talk to me like that. That's not respectful of you, because I don't want you to be the kind of person that you curse at people, but it's not respectful of me. So I'm not saying roll over, but you need to show them that they're loved. Find time to do things alone with them. Take a walk down to town, start a puzzle. All the things we talked about, engage them. Excuse me. Always my best parenting tip is get curious. Get curious. Some kids don't like lots of cuddling and hugging. Respect that. Figure out, he doesn't really like me to smother him and kiss him and pet him, but he does like when I just sit down and watch a TV show with him, right? There's things like that to figure out how that child, and remember they're changing and it's okay. So that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be pushing and pulling from us. always a good place where I say reminder, talk to your kids about their rights to set limits on who may touch them and when someone can touch them. And now, I didn't know how to put this on the slide, so I'm gonna add it, is this has to include screen time, how you're connecting, how they're connecting with people. So obviously people can't touch them, but the things that our tweens and teens are doing on screens, they've always been doing it, but now I can tell stories for now. So that conversation needs to be had. I just went out of my mind, Heather, if you remember that there's very popular Omegle, is that the one? I think Omegle, that is one of the places that is porn, and it's soft porn. It's sort of like Tinder, but it's where people just go to hook up, virtually hook up, left out that word, virtually hook up. And a lot of tweens, it's like they're daring each other, one's telling the other. Google it, do some research, and then talk to your kids about it, because I just read a great article last week. I can't quote the author, but porn is off the charts right now. The amount of people spending time on porn, and that is not just our adults. And then I throw in there one of my best lines: be present. I know these are hard times, but take time for yourself. Ground yourself. Be present. Is the debate going to be on in your house? Are you getting really stressed out about politics? Is it too much for your children? Just an example. Okay. This we kind of covered, but is just make time to talk to them. Be present. This one I just thought I threw in for fun. So I interviewed a bunch of my clients in the last couple of weeks in preparation. I'm doing several of these programs. And this is what some of my tweens and teens wanted me to share with you all. Knock before you enter my room. How many people do? Respect my opinions, even if they're different than yours. Don't expect me to be your best friend, your confidant. Thank me when I do something for you before you tell me I did it wrong. I'm going to say that one again. Thank me when I do something for you before you tell me how I did it wrong. How many of us are guilty of that, right? Oh my gosh, you put your shirt, you hung your shirt up and it's all inside out, all your shirts. Why did you do that? Well, I just skipped over the fact that they just spent an hour cleaning their room. I can acknowledge that they cleaned their room and then be like, it might be easier to get dressed in the morning if you put your clothes right, da da da. I am scared and anxious too. I may just show it differently than you do. The amazing teenager, 16-year-old, shared that with me. I may look like a big kid, but sometimes I just want life to be fun and easy. Acknowledge me, see me, hear me. And I'll add, I may be different than you, and that should be okay. Any comments, questions?
Yeah, and feel free if you want to unmute and talk to Nancy directly. Go ahead. Now's our Q&A time, and we're happy to have an informal chat. I do have a question about when you say be present, and feels like we're always present. So how do you build that balance, even for yourself, when like you need time away from the rest of them, and they need time away from you too. I mean, I feel like, especially I have a tween and a teen, and we're in that position where we have a hard time balancing when we're going to do something as a family and when we've just had way too much of each other.
That's great, because I was using being present. We can use it in two different ways, right?
Right.
Be present, like if I'm going to sit there and say I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to put my phone away because I really want to talk to you. I keep looking at Heather, sorry, I keep looking away, but I really want to be present. And maybe, but what you're also saying is, oh my God, we've had so much family time. I think, I know from my own experience that it's really important to say, like, right now, mom's taking a bath. I need time away. Because right there, you're being the role model. You're saying, I'm feeling stressed. I don't even have to say it. I just feel like I need some alone time. It's okay, I need some alone time. Do you guys ever feel that way? Kind of take that to create that space. But that, what you said is such a great thing to talk about too as a family is, how are we doing? Are we feeling too smothered? Are we feeling too on top of each other? How are we going to take care of that? Where do we create space? Any questions? I just figured out how to see the chat. It only took me that long. So it looks like there were 29 people, some left, and I just want to kind of bring up one last point before we start losing everyone is, that I welcome you to go to my website, nancyjkisline.com. There is a free ebook which is about mindfulness and meditation. And it's actually chapter 6 we modified from my book, Lockdown. And I think now more than ever, especially from the little ones all the way up to the big ones, teaching some of these mindfulness techniques, and I offer lots of resources there of other places you can go online and click and learn, is so important. Never, ever has it been more important for us to teach ourselves and our children how to use our breath, to use our mindfulness. The other thing is join our community, get involved in MMAC, come to Nancy Kisline Parenting Navigator, follow me, and we have another program on, when is our next
October
program?
27th.
October 27th. Invite friends, family, it doesn't matter where people, it's open to anyone.
Yep.
And I'd love your feedback because I hate that I can't see you and I can't hug you and I can't do all that warm thing. So I'm giving a big virtual hug, and please feel free, positive, negative, anything, want your feedback. And now everyone is probably running to watch the debate is what I think is happening.
I don't think that starts till 9.
9? Okay.
I'll be asleep by then.
Does anyone have any questions?
Any other questions? Anybody else want to bring anything up?
I love that people were chatting. I think it goes back to how maybe I always played with doing walking therapy. Like I should hold my therapy sessions while I'm walking.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, maybe now is the time that we should like join a group, like group pods walking. Thank you.
Well, I think that's, that's one of the things that people were talking about in the chat too. And it certainly affects adults as well as the kids, is this feeling of isolation, not being with their classmates, and they see them on screens, but they're not, or even online in their chats and the way they were connecting, but not having that face-to-face, and those, many of us aren't able to see grandparents or distant relatives because we can't travel to them, and it's really hard, and it does.
You know what, before everyone jumps off, is feel free. I know the next week is going to be really challenging for all of you sending your kids back. So if anyone ever needs anything, reach out. All right, Heather, I think everyone's going, so we're going to say bye. Have a good night. Stay healthy, stay safe.
We're looking forward to seeing you at the next one. Bye.
I'll call you.
Bye, Nancy.